All right. Are we live? I'm pretty sure we're live. Hello, everybody. This is going to be I suppose the easiest way to say it would be a review of Cradle Unsouled. This is the animatic that came out as a reward for backers for the Kickstarter project for getting Cradle animated. So I'm pretty sure this is what the final product is going to be built on. And I just wanted to give my thoughts as a massive, massive fan of the book series, as a guy who probably read the entire thing through 3 or 4 times to this point and have picked several books to read more than that. But jeez, I don't have a script. So we're just going off the cuff, off the we're, we're just going off it, and I won't show any footage because obviously, you know, I paid for it, you didn't. I paid for it, you didn't. So unfortunately, this is all you're going to get to see. And these are just my thoughts. I probably should have written notes on precisely what I wanted to say, but I do like get it. First of all, first thing I have to say, absolutely friggin' yes. I loved it all the way through. I did have some complaints about it. I say complaints, criticisms about it, and I probably will go on about them a lot. But what I want to start off with is that I really, really, really did like it, and it gave me a lot of ideas just as a logistics dude of how to like pitch series to people, right? Like something like this, if you showed them to like I don't know Netflix or Amazon, they might bite. I'm just saying. I'm just saying they might bite of instead of like bake rolling your own like pilot for X thousands amount of dollars and spending like 4 or 5 years animating it yourself. You can hire a guy to make animatic, get a few guys on Etsy or G or wherever you find voice actors to voice act the animatic, pitch that around to some people and see if they bite. That's not a bad idea. And I think this is an incredible proof of concept. I'm not sure exactly how this is being produced. I'm not sure what studio is involved, what people are involved. Like from the trailer, it looks very Netflixy, like the very Devil May Cry, very what was it? Um, Voltron. There we go. That's what I was looking at. Very very My Adventures with Superman, which isn't a bad thing at all because I personally really really like that look and I think it works for Cradle a lot. Cradle's a bit gorier than all of that, but yeah, I think it works for all of that beautifully. And as for this animatic, this retells the events of the first two novels. So the first novel, Unsouled, the second one being Soulsmith. And this is where we start getting into the criticism. That's a This had to fit within a budget and I assume a kind of deadline. 1 second. Just a little guess. Anyway, because this is an animatic, because this was funded and bankrolled and everyone had to be paid for it, there are limits to what you could have made. That's just kind of the nature of production in general. What this means is that there is a lot of both novels that were cut out or truncated in order to work. Now, Cradle was built obviously as a novel, from the ground up. That is just the way. I feel like I should put something on screen. I feel like I should put something else on screen, but I also don't want to play it because I'm gonna send this to Will White and he's gonna get very angry at me. Anyway, with Cradle, it was built as a novel series from the ground up, so it's made to fit within that format. When you're adapting it to other formats, there are going to be translation issues and growing pains. That's just the nature of adaptations. And my only complaint, this is divided basically into two halves. The first two-thirds, I want to say, two-thirds, I want to say, are dedicated entirely to Unsouled. My only real complaint with Unsouled is that there was a lot cut out of it. There was a lot truncated. Well, I say there was a lot truncated, there's a lot cut out. All the important parts are still there. But there are also a lot of scenes that were cut out, specifically from mostly the first half of the novel. So the big one that kind of jumps out to me, the first biggest cut is the introduction of Surreal. So okay, for those people who haven't read um, the Cradle series at all, First of all, spoiler alert ahead. Give you a brief rundown of the series, kind of the elevator pitch of it. A shonen manga and I suppose novel form. That's the general vibe of this. It's a bit it's a bit gorier than most shonen manga, I would have to say. I mean, you have like fucking like heads just like rolling down in several scenes, especially in Unsouled. I don't know what Lee Marcus had with it, but it gets that general vibe. It seems very inspired by Chinese mythology and power systems and things of that nature. But in Cradle, you have it's a kind of a multiversal kind of story where the main story happens in the world of Cradle, but Cradle's only one world, one iteration in an entire multiverse, and the people in charge of the multiverse are called the Abidan, or at least they're in charge of protecting the multiverse, I should have to say, or at least most of it. That becomes a problem later in the series, but that's all I'm saying. Suriel is one of the judges. She is the Phoenix. She's in charge of bringing people back to life and healing destroyed worlds. So Lee Marcus, interdimensional villain, interdimensional criminal, comes back to Cradle to try to rule it. About halfway through the original novel, I guess that'd be like a fourth to one third of the way through this. He comes down, tries to do some bad stuff, and then Suriel descends from the heavens to stop him. In the novel, before this happens, she gets a scene to herself where we're introduced to her, get the general vibe of the Abida. But in here, she just kind of appears. And if you've never seen Cradle before, it's kind of a what the fuck moment. It seems very very jarring because she didn't get that scene to herself. It's amazing what removing one scene can kind of do for the entire vibe. It's like with character development, you don't necessarily need a whole bunch of time to develop it. Sometimes you just need one good scene, two good lines, something like that. And I feel by removing the scene where Suriel's introduced, she comes into Cradle looking for Osriel. Spoiler, not going to get into that right now. Or at least she's in her search for Osriel. I feel like you should have left that back in. Another cut, which wasn't well, this is a restructuring of the first part of the book. So again, spoilers ahead. That's just the way this is going to be. In the Unsouled book, how everything kind of starts is with a spat. The main character, Lyndon, is off looking for an ancestral tree because it grows this special fruit. I'm simplifying here. The Cradle power system can be very complicated. I'm not getting into it. But he's looking for an ancestral tree, and in it he gets interrupted, and I suppose he interrupts someone else from his village, someone else from his clan who's hunting a white fox. Lyndon is unsouled. He doesn't have a whole lot of soul power, so you can think about it as chakra, not a whole lot of Nen, not a whole lot of Ki if you're looking at Dragon Ball Naruto, that kind of thing. He doesn't have a lot of it. So he's considered a not even a second class citizen, like a third class citizen, effectively. Effectively handicapped, right? So in kind of being interrupted or interrupting this hunt, the dickhead kid that he's dealing with decides, as a show of power, to knock down the ancestral tree, not knowing that the tree would leave a remnant, which is basically a ghost. And the ghost then attacks, and then, well, Lyndon has to do quite some clever things to actually escape and drop the fruit. But here's the thing: in the original novel, both he, being Lyndon, and the dickhead kid, which is Way, no, he's not a she. Waymon Terrace? I think his name is Waymon Terrace. They're both punished by the first elder for for the hunt, basically for the hunt of the white fox, which is illegal unless specifically allowed. And as such, Waymon Terrace is basically spanked in front of everyone in the village, which is cathartic, I have to say. But Lyndon has to feed Elder Whisper, which is a sacred beast. You think of a giant, I think it's 3 or 5 tailed fox? White fox, something like that. Oldest, most powerful, probably most powerful thing in the village, right? And it's this discussion which sets him out on his journey. In this, it's truncated. While the issue with Monteris is still here, Monteris isn't named. Monteris is not named in this at all, I don't believe. He's still there. He still interrupts the hunt. He still fucks with Linden. But otherwise, otherwise he's not there. So that also means that the first elder doesn't punish him. So to get Linden to Elder Whisper, instead what happens is not Weishi Kelsa, not Weishi Drone. Man, I am really bad with names. Linden's mom instead is the one who sends him to meet with Elder Whisper, and I, of course, me reading the books is like, she has that kind of authority. I mean, she's a soulsmith, so she's important to the village, but I don't think she had that kind of authority to send people to Whisper. So that kind of threw me for a loop. But this issue with Waymon Terrace is also what starts a cascade of events, right? So because Lyndon effectively embarrassed the kid, now the dad gets involved, and to try to preserve his family's honor, he tries basically challenging Lyndon to a duel with his daughter. So Lyndon's like, okay, either A, I get my ass beat by a little girl, or B, I beat up a little girl. Either way, I'm fucked. So he has to figure out this really clever trick. He learns the empty palm, which will essentially disable your magic for several seconds, and yeah, it would disable your magic for several seconds. That's how it works. But in the novel, remember, in the novel it's a bit different. In the novel, he actually challenges the dad to a duel. He doesn't beat him per se, but he does trick him. And, that's good enough. And then from there, he joins the 7-year festival, which is a big tournament, and so on and so on. A lot of this is truncated, a lot of this is cut out. So instead of that incident, he he still gets into the spat with the little girl, but I don't think it's ever explained who she is. And it's not important to the greater things of Cradle. So now that, with all that explained, what I'm saying is there is a lot cut out and truncated. And to be fair, this isn't all the stuff that's there isn't important to the story of Cradle as a whole, but it helps. How should I say? Wash down the story? I don't know. It's like it's like when you have a meal, right? Technically, all you need is the nutrition. The taste doesn't matter. The appetizers don't matter, but they help, right? That they help, and there's a lot of flavor that's taken out as a result of a lot of things being cut. And again, you have to make these cuts when you're doing something like this because there's a lot of people involved, there's a lot of money involved, and there are just sacrifices you have to make, especially when you're trying to adapt two novels instead of one. My drink down. So this is where we start kind of running into this because Suriel doesn't have a scene to herself before she appears in front of London. It's kind of like she appears out of nowhere, and it seems very not so much jump the sharky. I'm not sure it's possible to jump the shark with something like Cradle, especially in the later novels. But I ain't getting into that. Cradle gets wild, especially near the end, and it's a crazy time. It's a fun time. That's all I'm saying about that. But because she appears out of nowhere, it kind of it took me for a loop, and this is me knowing exactly what's going on. And when we get to the Soulsmith part, things are cut again, and for the most part, I have the opposite issue, where I think a lot of the cuts are good, but a lot of the issues I have are so much the structure with the book aren't that conducive to a movie. That's kind of the issue. So, in the beginning of Soulsmith, you have two brief spats. There is one with a squad of basically three Sand Viper, yeah, with the three Sand Vipers at the beginning of the novel who are just trying to fuck with Lyndon and Yaren. And then right after that, they're chased by a bunch of Dread Beasts. Instead of having both those scenes, it's truncated into one with just the Dread Beast. I think that was a good idea. Usually, I'm very good at explaining my thoughts about why I like something and why I don't. But with Soulsmith, in that scene in particular, for some reason, I don't like that both the Sand Viper fight and the Dread Beast fight are there. I don't know why. I don't know why I don't like it. I can't explain it. But the fact that it was cut into one was something I appreciate. And then, right after all that, there is a Sand Viper introduced who introduces the Transcendent Runes, the Five Factions Alliance, all that good stuff, to Lyndon and Yaren. I forget his name because he's not important. He appears for this scene, and he does not appear in the novel again. He does not appear in the series again. So instead, that role is given to Sandpiper Crawl, which I also think was an ingenious idea. I think that was good. And then there's a whole bunch of the middle of Soulsmith, which is cut out, which I'm not a big fan of. I get why it was done again, and I think that was the best move, considering the options available. But I'm not that big a fan of it. So what I'm talking about is after the characters are taken in by Fisher Gesha, Linden is kidnapped once, then saved, and then spends days to weeks planning a heist, which goes poorly, which leads to them being captured and enslaved by the Sandpipers, which leads to them meeting Ethan and so on. Instead, this is basically truncated into one scene where Linden is simply taken. Yaren takes this as a challenge, goes to fight Jai Long. Yes, why am I forgetting names? She goes to fight Jai Long, doesn't go well, and then they're enslaved like that, which works and is nice and truncated. But again, I feel like I don't like that. So I guess my primary criticism is that it cuts a lot of flavor from both novels. So I think I would have preferred it if you just adapted all of Unsouled as it was, with as little changes as possible. Once you get to Soulsmith, I imagine there are issues because I don't think Soulsmith works as well as a movie as Unsouled does. And Unsouled is one of the best novels I've ever read from a pacing perspective because a lot happens in it, but it doesn't feel rushed. It also doesn't feel very slow. And it's only, from what I understand, it's only an 8-hour novel, and we have so much that happens. And well, I guess the animatic has a lot of that too. But I'm pretty sure you could have gotten all of them sold into like 90 minutes, maybe an hour 40. That's kind of that's kind of my main criticism. As far as I don't think I had any other criticisms really besides that. I really like the voice talent. I really like Yaren. I like her design. I like her voice. Of course, I just like her personality. She's a bloody psychopath, but that's why we love her. Ethan be also I should hasten to add. Soulsmith is actually one of my personal favorite books, mainly in part because it introduces two of my favorite characters in the entire series, being Ethan and Fisher Geshen. They probably rank number one and number three. Maybe number one and number two, depending on where you want to place Geshen, but it introduces Ethan, so that makes up for a lot. And it's not a weak novel at all. It's not a bad novel at all. It's just the way it's structured isn't that conducive to a movie in the same way that you could do for something like Black Flame or Unsouled, right? And I think Sky Swan kind of also has this issue. They're kind of transitionary books, if that makes sense. Certainly from a power perspective. And I suppose Ghostwater might also kind of fit into that, but Ghostwater also does a lot that's important. Introduces draws, introduces the rivalry with the dragons, and so on and so on. It also takes place in it. I'm not Look, I'm not getting into this. Is about the animatics. This is about adaptations. This is not about matter of fact, let me see. If I can figure out because this is a 2-hour animatic, right? So I should be able to find. Let me see. Yeah, that's what animatics look like, people. This is basically a moving storyboard. Yep. I'm trying to figure out precisely where it ends. I'm pretty sure that. Yep. Okay. So this is where book one ends and book two begins. About an hour and 10 minutes in. I'm pretty sure you could fit all of Unsouled into about an hour 30. And well, Ethan isn't introduced at that point, but I'm pretty sure you could fit all. I think that's how I would have. I think that's how I would have preferred it. I've thought a lot about how to adapt Cradle into a manga, right? I don't think I could do it. I don't think I have the artistic talent to adapt Cradle into a manga. I'm just gonna say it to you right now. I think I'm talking straight up artistic now. I'm straight up just the technical skill required to draw all that. I think I know logistically how I would plan it, but when it comes to actual execution, I would need someone else to do it. Like for example, I'm pretty sure you can fit all of Unsouled into two 7 chapter volumes if we're talking like standard Shonen Jump, 15 to 19 pages per chapter kind of thing. If we're dealing with something like Attack on Titan or Fullmetal Alchemist, where chapters are a lot longer, from what I understand, different story, but still. Soulsmith, you can probably, you might be able to fit, you might be able to fit into one. It's really Skysworn and Soulsmith, I think, would you have issues with that, because I'm pretty sure I think you can fit them into one. Maybe they'd be a little bit oversized, but I think you can fit them into one volume. But here's the thing, right? With Kodansha looking for Western creators, with Kodokawa now looking for Western creators. I mean, Will, all I'm saying is that there is a non-zero chance you could sell Cradle as a manga to one of these two people, possibly even Viz if you wanted to. All I'm saying is it's a possibility. Do I want a Cradle manga? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And a manga would be at least relatively cheap, depending on how you wanted to do it. Like the conversion from USD to yen is pretty good. It's pretty good right now. So if you want to get a Japanese artist to do it, I mean, the language barrier is a problem, but I'm just saying. I'm just saying it's possible. All I'm saying. I'm a manga myself. I'm just not good enough. I'm just not good enough. I'm not volunteering. I'm just saying. Trying to, yeah, I'm a manipulative bastard. I'm not slick at all. Shit, where was I? Where was I? Where was I? I'm pretty sure that this will be what the eventual, how should I say, the eventual animated thing will be built on. Again, I'm pretty sure you might be able to sell this to or pitch this to Netflix or Amazon, maybe even get it funded like that. I'm pretty sure it's already funded, it's already on its way. But there you go. And I and Will is, from what I understand, all these books were self-published. So he's used to having control over himself. I'm not sure he would like selling Cradle as a property to other people because they might request changes that he didn't like and changes that we as the fans wouldn't like. So I also understand trepidation like that. But I'm just throwing out ideas. You know what I'm saying? Also, character designs. I probably need to work. I've been thinking about trying to draw some of these characters myself. But I do have to say, Cradle has really been brought to life like this. And if he wanted to, he could do the entire series like this. So I'm not sure exactly how expensive making this animatic was. It was probably a good deal cheaper than making an actual episode. But I'm saying, if you can't give us an animated series, this will do. This was some good stuff. I'm trying to see if there's anything specifically here that I'd want to share. But no, I think that's kind of it for my thoughts. This was some really good stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing all this animated properly. Let me see where I'm at because in OBS. How long I've been going on? I've been yapping for 23 minutes about random shit. Ain't nobody gonna watch this. But yeah, I thought that as a huge fan of Cradle and as a backer that I wanted to record my thoughts. I wanted to record my thoughts. Maybe give maybe give Will some ideas. I don't know. I try to be influential when I can. Anyway, anything else I wanted to mention? More Ethan? More Ethan. Yeah, there we go. More Ethan. Biggest criticism. There isn't enough Ethan. I'm sure Ethan would agree. Anyway, thank you everybody, and I'll see you next time.